Hi guys, welcome back to our home build, and here we are at the construction site. So we've been making slow progress here because we've had a lot of piping and ducts to run through the subfloor.
A lot of prep work before putting up plywood on top of the subfloor. We passed inspection on the framing of the subfloor that you see behind us, as well as the sewer lines, vent lines, HVAC lines, etc. Everything that goes below that floor frame about a week ago. And now we've been prepping and finishing things to start putting the plywood that you see behind us here. Let us take you through what we've done the last few weeks.
Okay guys,
So here below is some of the HVAC ducting that we've installed. This is flex ducting, insulated flex ducting is R8, which is now required in California. We have a main coming from the basement here to the sidewall, and then we have 4 arms that go across in different directions. So each vent is getting its dedicated arm, and we have dampers here that we can control the flow to each vent. And let's take a quick look at these vents. There's one over here. We're gonna have vents coming up the wall, kind of like this one. This is gonna go below, and then it's gonna rise up the side of the wall here, and it's gonna be about 9 feet up, maybe 8 feet up.
obviously there won't be a plastic bag in there, but
No, that's just temporary. Temporary while we build. Let's take a look at one of these distribution centers.
Here's an open one. Over here we'll show you guys the distribution center.
So this is a custom-built HVAC distribution box. As you can see, each arm for each vent comes from here. We have a 90-degree elbow that has to be sealed. All the joints here have to be sealed with mastic. This is tape. There's also a zip tie that goes here. Eventually, once we test this, which we are now doing, it's set up right now to blow air through all these vents. And if we find no more leaks, then we'll close up the insulation and tie it all up and make it look nice. But we have 3 of these distribution centers, one here, one over there, one on the other side, that essentially cover all the air for the first floor in the common areas. What we're doing is in the office and guest room, etc., we have ductless units so that people in those rooms can control the air temperature however they like without affecting the rest of the house. In the top floor, all the bedrooms have ductless units with cassettes in them, so they are recessed into the ceiling so that the temperatures can be individually controlled without having to turn on the AC for the rest of the house. Another thing I like to show you here is we have under subfloor lighting. We have installed 8-foot LEDs that each provide approximately 6,500 lumen. It's a lot of light.
We still have some more that are here actually, but we need to install them.
We have a couple more to install, but so far we've installed 20 under this subfloor, everywhere where we could possibly need one. Along with that, we've also installed receptacles, plugs, so that if ever there's a need to do any work down here, we can easily find a close by receptacle to plug in and use a power tool. But
I have a picture I can show you guys with all the lights on.
yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It
Looks bright.
very bright, very well lit. If any of you have ever worked in basements or not basements, crawl spaces or attics, you know that it can be quite dark out there. Well, this one is lit up that you wouldn't believe. Hopefully you can see that from the pictures. We've also installed all the water lines coming into the house. We have an 1.25 PEX A water line coming from that direction underneath into the basement. We're going to have a water control center down there with valves controlling each bathroom, each location. We've also set up, so we have to set up direct branches to each place where we have a sink or a bathroom, so that we can shut those off, and also so that there can be lots of pressure to those locations. Another thing we've done is we've set up hot water loops to individual locations, so that water can be hot without having to wait a long time for it to heat up in a shower, in a sink, etc. And that water loop will probably be run with a timer that runs every few minutes. Anyway, all the water lines right now on this floor are coming into the basement through here. We'll do the same for the top floor when we get there. But as you can see, all the water lines are insulated so that it doesn't get hot or cold over time. Let me show you some of the water lines that are already coming up on this side. Here we have a bathroom where we have a hot water line and a cold water line already coming up. Here we have the toilet, cold water line. These are 1/2 inch, that's a 3/4 because we can always convert it up in the wall without having to cut. We're minimizing the number of cuts that we do underneath to prevent leaks. The fewer cuts, the better. This is for the refrigerator. There's going to be a kitchen wall here, the refrigerator here. And then we have cold water and hot water. This is a 3/4 inch, and they didn't have a red, so we ended up with white, although it has red lettering.
And this will be split into 3, so that way 1 can go to the sink and 2 can go to the dishwashers.
Yes, 1 for each dishwasher and 1 for the sink. And by keeping it 3/4 up to this point, we keep it. We can maintain the pressure fairly well, the flow fairly well. Let's see. Next, for insulation. So before putting this plywood down, we have to put this type of insulation. This is called rock wool.
You can touch it?
You can touch it and not get itchy. It's made out of rock that has been crushed and then pulverized, really, and then spun into a wool. It feels a lot like regular fiberglass, but it's not. It's
not going to make you itchy, not going to make you
itchy.
cough.
It's not bad for your lungs. And let me show you how it's installed. Installed in here. A lot of it, you let it sit and it expands and it fits snugly in the space so it doesn't fall. However, you can also use these things, and you should use these things called insulation wires. These get installed by placing them between 2 joists, like such, with the curve up a little bit. You try to sink them into the joist as well as you can. And then you squeeze the insulation in place, like such. Voila.
Now we have our insulated floor.
Now you have an insulated floor.
And then you just do that about 100, 200, 300 times, and you've got the whole floor.
A lot more than that. We're going to have well over 800, 900 wires, insulation wires being placed here, maybe even 1,000. Another thing I like to point out down here is we've had to, since we have our vents coming up the walls for the first floor anyway, we've had to install the ducts. These are metal ducts. Right now they're insulated, but
There's metal.
there's metal. In fact, if you turn around, you can see one that it's not yet covered up. We've insulated this with bubble insulation. It's about an R6 in this part, but since it's going to be inside a wall, it should be okay. Underneath it's an R8. And we've cut this one short a little bit so that we can have an easier time placing the plywood. As we cut the holes and place the plywood. This plywood is being placed with glue and then screws every 6 inches in the perimeters every 8 inches in the middle. Screws should prevent any type of squeaking. What do you think? Pretty solid? I don't heard any squeaks yet.
By the time all this floor is on, we'll be able to play tennis or soccer on this floor.
Well, tell you what, in about 3 days, by Saturday, really, this whole place should have the subfloor on. And there are a few spots here that are large enough and without any obstructions like these that we can actually play a little bit of tennis. So
Maybe we'll make a video on that.
We will make a video on that. I think
Playing tennis on your house.
right through here, it's long enough, although there are some walls there with bolts coming through. But maybe over there, from the kitchen all the way to the end of the family room. By the way, guys, this floor is approximately 3,000 square feet.
And
First floor.
The top floor will be about another 2,000, a little less.
Maybe 2,700, 2,800, yes.
About a 5,700,
Yes.
almost 6,000 square foot house.
Another thing to note here, the insulation. So this is an open crawl space. It has to be vented to the outside. In California, we don't really have a lot of cold weather, so venting this to the outside is not a big deal. However, we couldn't put this thick insulation in these spots where the vents are because it would block access. So these vents are intended to prevent humidity from building up down here and to keep this crawl space relatively dry by keeping airflow going through it. So we put in this insulation that is do I have some vent over here? Owens Corning. This is about 1.5 inches, and it's about an R7.5. The rest of the insulation here is at 23, although the specs call for 19. So we've gone overboard in the rock wool side, and a couple of spots we just can't do any more here because we need to have the ventilation.
Shouldn't be a problem though.
It shouldn't be a problem at all. And
Especially since we went R23 on those.
yes, we're going to be exceeding the requirements there. This is another one of the vents. And
We've got outlets there for the lights. And
yes, you can see some of the outlets that we can use for tools.
So if we ever needed to put a power tool down here, we could do that without much trouble.
Yes, exactly. And these will have some glue on top of them, so when we lay down the plywood tomorrow, they won't fall down due to shaking or anything like that. These are fairly tight in here, so it's not likely that they will fall down anyway, but these are more susceptible to that, especially when you play soccer or tennis inside the house. All right.
We may even consider building an actual tennis court in the back lot over there after the house is.
Yes, a multi-use sports court is in the plants, right behind the
Right behind.
control area. It'll be right there.
We've got about a half acre back there, so
Yeah.
got to make use of it.
Otherwise, you'll have to be doing a lot of mowing at the weekends because we're not hiring a gardener. What we have down here, another thing to point out, this big piece of cement is a solid block of cement that was poured along.
This is for the staircase, I believe, right?
This was the fireplace. But it didn't bother us, and it would take a lot more work to break it into pieces. We broke in a few other places where we needed to break them.
And it doesn't really make sense because it doesn't really affect.
That's right. It doesn't really affect
Aside
much.
from the crawl space, but realistically, there's not really a reason to be over
we're not
here.
going to be living down there much unless we go hide down there for some reason. Yeah. Follow me to the basement.
And if we want to hide into the house, we have a lot of space down there. We can do it more easily.
So right now,
Or I could even crawl through here.
right now this is a temporary setup of the basement. So we've connected this 12-inch flex ducting just so we can test the
AC.
AC ducts down here on this side. Eventually, we'll be putting in a solid, flat, maybe 8x14 duct from here across the top, mainly so that it doesn't have, a low head space. So Ideally, it'll drop to about here, and it'll give us plenty of headspace with the solid duct and rectangular. The rest of them are going to be like this. This still needs to be finished. This is only temporarily set up right now.
We were even thinking about putting some sort of temporary walls in here. That way we could have this room without any of.
Yes, so eventually we might put a temporary wall here, so that we can then have the rest of this room available for a wine cellar or something of that nature. The intake for this unit will be through here and up to the second floor. Another intake will probably be along the wall here, and here we'll have our water distribution center. You see all these pipes coming in here. It will eventually be nicely arranged in this wall, and hopefully we'll have a video on that with valves to each location. This is our water heater, and this used to be on this wall and the water heater on that wall, so we swapped locations primarily so that we make it easier to pull air from the top floor, the hot air. Here in California, we don't really use a heater that often. We want to cool the hot air most 9 months out of the year and keep it nice and cool.
For sure.
We've yeah. So that's the deal here.